Joining us now, NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Kube, NBC News chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles, and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General who previously represented George W. Bush in the 2000 case Bush v. Gore at the Supreme Court, Tom Dupree. Courtney, I want to start with you. This is just getting started, but what do we know about why they were stopping people? They set up this checkpoint not very far from my house. This is an area where people go out. It's a lot of bars. It's a lot of restaurants. And then what is this 30-day mission? Where is this 30-day mission headed?
Yeah, it's a really popular part of D.C., as you said, a lot of bars and restaurants, but it's also a very residential area. So this is part of this additional federal official presence in the city. Part of that is the National Guard. They've now been on duty for about 2 days. Theirs is more of a presence mission. But as we saw from reporting from our very own Gary Grumbach last night, they actually did set up a checkpoint right down in the popular U Street corridor area. Now, as part of this crackdown, we are also learning that D.C. is instituting a juvenile curfew. Now, it's for one specific part of the city, not too far from that 14th and V area. It's actually over towards the Navy Yard. It begins tomorrow night, Friday night at 8 p.m., goes through 11 p.m., and that's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's been an area where there has been an uptick in juvenile crimes in recent years. As part of this, teens under the age of 17 who are caught violating this curfew will be potentially have to perform up to 25 hours of community service. And very notable here, Christina, as part of it, the parents of those teenagers who are caught violating the curfew could also be subject to a $500 fine. That's not the only other change that we're learning about as part of this crackdown on crime in D.C. that started out of President Trump's announcement earlier this week. As part of this also, Metropolitan Police Department, that's MPD in D.C., they can now, when they are conducting any kind of a traffic stop or any kind of stopping people for whatever reason, suspicious of a crime or anything, if they find an individual who is undocumented, they can actually refer that individual to ICE. That is a change that's new and different. Now, we're also tracking the D.C. National Guard. They've been on the streets, as I said, for a couple of days now. We did learn today that about 800 of them who have been called up, activated for this duty, they are now all on duty. But, Christina, they'll still be on shifts, 100 to 200 on duty at any time, but those are ultimately they will be on shifts for 24 hours a day for the foreseeable future. Christina.
All right, Courtney Kube at the Pentagon. Thank you so much. Ryan, I want to turn to you now because President Trump is looking to actually extend this takeover past 30 days. He needs congressional approval, we think, to do this. Is Congress going to give it to him?
I think Republicans in Congress would certainly like to give him as much time as he wants to deal with this problem that President Trump thinks need to be dealt with immediately. But the problem he's going to run into is that it's going to require at least some Democratic support in the Senate. Anything in the Senate requires at least 60 votes, and there are not 60 Republican votes in the Senate right now. And Democrats, at least at this point, seem prepared to take the president on this issue. Listen to what the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had to say about this potential ask from Donald Trump.
If he went to Congress and said, you know what, there's this crime emergency, we need the National Guard out there longer, we need to take over Washington, D.C., would you grant it?
No way. We'll fight him tooth and nail. Not only are we not going to approve it, but I have there are some Republicans who don't like it either. This is, again, just a distraction. He's afraid of Epstein. He's afraid of all that. And we are not going to be we are not going to give up on Epstein.
So I don't think there's any question that if this were a standalone resolution that came to the floor of the Senate, that there's probably not 60 votes for it. But nothing in Congress happens that simply, Christina. There's the real possibility that Republicans may try and add this provision to a broader spending package. And with a spending running out towards the end of September, you could see this tacked on to a spending bill that if Democrats vote no, they could be voting to shut the government down. So right now, Republicans have not forecasted exactly how they plan to roll this out. But there are options that they have at their disposal that could put Democrats in a very difficult situation. Now, Democrats may decide that they don't want to support a government funding bill under any circumstances, given their opposition to Trump and his administration. But this is a complicated decision that Democrats are going to be facing here in the next couple of weeks, should this be something that comes before them. Christina.
And Ryan, we heard Schumer being rather unambiguous about his position in that clip there, but he also mentioned he thinks there's some Republicans who wouldn't support this either. What's your read on that? Because we've heard that song before, and when the push comes to shove, they usually seem to fall in line with what the president wants. Is this an issue that you think Republicans would oppose him on?
Yeah, I do think that there probably are a few Republicans in both the House and Senate, for that matter, that are probably uncomfortable with this level of federal intervention into what is essentially a local issue. Now, whether or not they feel strongly enough to buck the president, I think, is a completely different conversation. But keep in mind, the margins in the House are very slim. It's only about a 3-vote margin. Theoretically, there could be a world in which you could find 3, 4, maybe 5 Republicans that would vote no in the House. But to your point, Christina, every single time there has been an opportunity for Republicans to stand up to Donald Trump in Congress, they have not taken that opportunity. So far, not a single Republican has come forward and voiced any sort of concern in that regard. So ultimately, I think this is going to be a decision that Democrats have to make as to whether or not they're going to kill this from going forward.
Fair enough. Tom, I'm wondering, when you hear about this new cooperation between D.C. police and ICE, especially during traffic stops, what concerns does that potentially raise?
Well, you have concerns anytime federal law enforcement gets involved in domestic policing. There's always kind of an uneasy dance between local control of policing functions and when the federal government comes in. What has surprised me in a good way so far is that from all appearances, it seems as though D.C. police and the federal officials who have come in the last 48 hours have been working cooperatively. The mayor of D.C., city council members in D.C. have attested to this, that the federal authorities are supporting the local authorities. They're not overstepping their bounds. The mayor has actually said that she welcomes the additional federal policing support. Now, we'll see if it holds. We're only 2 days into what may be a 30-day test run or longer. But at least the early returns suggest that you don't see the tensions that often can arise when you have federal law enforcement come in to police a city or a town. So far, they seem to be working in harmony.
All right, Ryan Nobles, Tom Dupree, thank you both so much.